Welcome to the Tough Decisions Network for Entrepreneurs. I'm Dan Hanford, and my wife, Danae, and I interview successful people sharing stories behind tough decisions that they've had to make along their journey as an entrepreneur. Before we get started, let's hear from one of our sponsors. Have you ever thought about investing in real estate, but find yourself so busy that you don't have time for it? Do you have FOMO, which is the fear of missing out? At HanfordCapital.com, we help investors with passive real estate investments that project better returns than traditional investment vehicles such as the stock market. If you'd like to find out more about our passive real estate investments, visit HanfordCapital.com. That's HANDFORD Capital.com. We will jump on a call with you to discuss your investment goals and to see if our investments are a good fit for you. This advertisement is not to be construed as an offer or recommendation to buy or sell a security. Visit HanfordCapital.com.
On the podcast with us today is Bree Noble. She quit her corporate job as a director of finance at a U.S. top 15 opera company to pursue music herself. In 2007, she founded an online radio station called Women of Substance Radio to promote quality female artists in all genres. So thank you, Bree, for being on with us today. We're looking forward to talking with you.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Bree, talk to us a little bit about your background as an entrepreneur.
Sure. So, my background as an entrepreneur actually started as being a musician. And it's very fitting because my teaching nowadays is all about how musicians are entrepreneurs. And I think a lot of times musicians don't realize that they're supposed to be entrepreneurs. So I was a musician throughout high school and college. I really wanted to do music full time, but I didn't really get the guidance in college in how to actually do that. So once I was out of school, I had kind of gotten this fallback career of getting a finance degree. And so I was working in, just accounting, general accounting. And then I ended up working at an opera company, which I really loved working at an opera company. But the whole time I was writing paychecks for all these artists who were out there living their dream, singing on the stage. And I was writing their paychecks and I wasn't doing what I wanted. So I didn't want to be an opera singer, but I wanted to be a musician, a singer-songwriter. And so I eventually was able to go out and start forging my career as a musician. And as I said, I had no clue how to start because I felt like I'd gotten no guidance in college. It was like I had all this business training, but as soon as I became a musician, that went out the window. So it was this process of me learning how to integrate my business training with what I did as a musician. So then, I was performing as a musician, touring, all that. And just because I was meeting a lot of other female musicians and I felt like there wasn't enough platforms out there to really promote female musicians, I started what Danae mentioned was the Women of Substance Radio back in 2007. And it was a platform for women. It grew. It became like a professional station. We had commercials and all that. And then it turned into a podcast, which I still have today. We're on episode number 800 and something, 15 or something like that. And then because I was really passionate about helping female musicians and I was working with all these women to promote their music, I found that they were like me, they didn't know how to marry that business and music together, or they didn't even know the business side. And so I started teaching female artists how to market and how to do the business stuff. And so that was when the Female Entrepreneur Musician was born in my Female Musician Academy. So that's kind of how the whole thing happened over time.
Well, it's interesting because, I have actually not had anybody on our podcast so far that I have talked to, that Danae has talked to, that is a musician entrepreneur. And that's a very unique, niche to be in. And you really found this, niche of being a musician who is an entrepreneur and have, gone into coaching and teaching, very specific musicians, female musicians, and teaching them how to become an entrepreneur with their music.
Yeah. I was just like, let's niche down even more. And it all kind of happened organically, which is great. And I kind of built my audience over time. So it wasn't like I just got up one day and said, I'm going to teach, female musicians how to do business. It just was very organic and I saw a need in the market. And so, yeah, I'm glad that I'm the first musician you've had on. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Well, talk to us a little bit about a tough decision that you've had along this journey as an entrepreneur.
Sure. So it was during that time that I was working at the opera. Working at an opera company is, especially in my position as director of finance, is very stressful because we're a nonprofit. And really, that particular company was surviving on like 60% donation. And so it was very much at the whim of like how the economy was doing, whether we were going to have enough money for that year. We didn't have a huge endowment. So when I first started working there, I remember like we were pulling ourselves out of potentially going under. And every night I would wake up in the middle of the night and run and call the bank. I mean, this is before like online banking. I call the bank to make sure there was enough money for the next day's, payroll or whatever it is that I had to do, or checks I'd already written. And so that was the kind of stress I was under at the opera. And it got better over the years, but then the economy went down again. It was like we were in Orange County, California. So we were in like the whole .com boom. But then as soon as that kind of went a little bit bust, so did our donations. And so it started to get really stressful. I started to actually experience a lot of health issues related to stress and my genetics in combination. And I ended up in the hospital after I had my first daughter. So I'm like having a child, getting sick, and still trying to run this opera company. And of course, in the back of my mind, I'm wanting to do music full time. I've always been trying to do it on the side, and just not really figuring out how to make it happen. And so at this one point, I'm like, I just can't sustain this anymore. I need to do something. What am I going to do? And so what I really wanted to do was go out and do my music and take care of my daughter and leave the opera behind and all of the stress. But at that point, my husband had just gotten his doctorate. He was just starting working at a private university, and their starting pay is not that great. So I was already making like, almost twice as much as he was making. And so it was really hard to be saying, okay, I'm going to leave this job with a new baby and all that. But I thought, well, if I need to make this happen somehow, I'm going to figure this out. So one day I was at home and just kind of walking around the neighborhood, and there was an open house in my neighborhood. And I was like, oh, cool, I'm going to go check this out. Our houses are kind of similar in this neighborhood. Let's see what they did with their house and stuff. And I went in there and I was like, I pulled up the flyer and I'm like, wait a minute, they're selling this house for $550,000. And my house I had bought for $293,000 like 3 years before. I had no idea that the market has gone this crazy. And so just me happening to walk down the street and go to this open house, like I immediately started talking to the realtors that were there. And I'm like, do you think I could get this much for my house? And they said, absolutely. And I said, this is it. This is my out. This is how I can not only get away from all the stress and the health problems that I'm having and spend more time with my daughter, but I can really pursue the music that I wanted to pursue. And so, some of it was luck. It was a hard decision to make because I did love working for the opera. I was very entrenched there. I had a lot of responsibility and, kind of importance there. And I was leaving behind all of that to just, stay home and take care of my daughter and hope that this music thing worked out. But I knew it was time to make a change. And, luckily the housing market was on my side, and we were able to sell even for like $565 and move into a much cheaper house closer to my husband's work. And I was able to really start digging in and figuring out how to be a musician.
So you actually used the money from that to be able to launch the academy?
Actually, no. At that time, that money was just to like make it possible for me to not have that salary anymore. So,
they give you that extra buffer.
Yeah, sustaining money. And then it gave me time to figure out how to be a musician and to start this music career that I did kind of part-time along with raising my daughter. And I started touring and performing and bringing in money that way. But it took me a couple of years to get there.
So right now, as a female musician, obviously you're doing a lot of stuff to train other female musicians. I think you have now a little over 3,000 followers with your Female Musician Academy.
So in my academy itself, I've got about 130 something members. Okay. I've got a free group on Facebook that's got 3,200 people in it, which is awesome. It's a community to support female artists. If they want to go to the next level and get all the training and stuff, then they join the academy. And, obviously I've got tons of other people that are like benefiting from all my free videos and things, but it all started with Women of Substance, and it all grew very organically. And, so it's been like 10, 11 years that I've been growing this.
Well, I'm sure that, as this podcast episode is released, that some of the people that are on that group, even on the free group, that haven't actually, stepped up to the plate and spent money with you to have you help them take them to the next level will be listening. And so what are some of the tough decisions, maybe the top, one or two tough decisions that you're seeing that a lot of these female musicians have when they first try to launch into this musician space, this musical space as an entrepreneur?
Well, I think the biggest decision is to believe enough in yourself to think of yourself as a business, because what happens with musicians in the old model, we didn't have this kind of access to our fans and the ability to, with social media and all that, we couldn't really do that one-to-one kind of thing very easily, especially when it wasn't just local. So we were kind of hanging out, waiting for some person at a label, to come and say, okay, now, I've decided you're good enough. I'm going to give you this opportunity to have a career. And a lot of people are still living in that old model. And so to have the confidence to invest in yourself, because it does take some investing. I mean, it's a business, right? This is another thing that I have to get across to them. Like, you do have to invest some money, just like starting any business. You have to invest some money to set up your website, to get equipment that you might need, get some training, whether it's the academy or whatever it is that you need to get the kind of training you need to run your business correctly and to have the skills you need. But a lot of musicians are just still in that waiting mode. And so my job is to get them off the fence and say, you can do this yourself. You don't need to wait for anyone. You may be waiting forever if you don't. And I've had conversations with people on my podcast that have I could have been waiting. I did wait, for 10 years to try to get somebody to take me on at a label or something, when I could have just been going out there and starting it myself.
Well, I think that the biggest lesson here for the musician entrepreneur, or the musician that is just a musician right now that really wants to be a musician entrepreneur and take their music to the next level, is to have somebody that has gone down the road as an entrepreneur from the musician standpoint that can help them get to that next level. Because you're right, you've got to take some time to invest, but you also don't want to invest that time and energy and money in the wrong areas and the wrong spaces. And I think that's where you can really help them, is to guide them and to coach them in your program on where they need to go, where is the best places to take action. Because we talk about all the time, about entrepreneurs have these great ideas and these great ambitions to want to do certain things, but they don't ever take action. And so the worst action that we always say is the action of inaction. We don't want you to be 10 years down the road and saying, hey, why am I still not doing this and doing what I really want to do and what my passions are? You need to find somebody that can help you take you down that road.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And also what you said before. So there's the problem of inaction, and then there's the problem of taking action that makes no sense for where you
Correct.
are at that point. So, that's kind of why I created this 5 stages of music career growth. And it's what I take people through in the academy, in that there's so many ways you can waste money and waste time in the early stages, because you see other people doing stuff. Oh, I need to get, a PR campaign. I released one single. I better get a PR campaign that costs $5,000, or I need a radio promoter. You're not there yet. And you can waste. I see musicians so many times, and I did it too when I was starting out, waste so much money on things that first of all, won't work for you at the stage that you're at. People they spend $5,000 on a promotional campaign, but they don't have a website. They don't have any social media that they can actually start engaging with any fans that they were to get through this, so it's all backwards.
Bree, talk to us a little bit about the strategies that you've developed to make tough decisions, because, obviously in just a few minutes that we've talked, you've made several of them and, faced them at different points in your career. So have you developed or have you learned about one strategy that you've found very helpful in making these difficult decisions?
I think for me, it all comes back to goal setting. And that's something I teach my students too. That's something that musicians tend to be very limited in, as far as actually sitting down and being number one, what's my why? Why am I doing this? What do I want to achieve? What are my core values? That, is very important for me in decision making, because, if my core value is travel, I love to travel, then I'm going to have a different kind of business than if I'm somebody that hates to travel. I'm going to be a touring artist and I'm going to love to go all kinds of places. If I my core value is I like to stay at home, then I'm going to do a totally different thing. I'm going to, be a recording artist. I'm going to record from home, that kind of stuff. I might try to do licensing. So, you start with that. And then I like the brainstorming thing. I always encourage them to just like, okay, what are all the things you'd like to do in the next year that came into your head? Like just write them all down, like spew them on the page, and then hone those down into like 5 goals that you can have for the next 90 days. So for me, it's like, I want to think big picture and start out with my why and my core values, then go down to like a year, and then go down to 90 days. And so obviously, like tough decisions, you have to look at the big picture because it's going to affect you much longer than 90 days. But then once you've made that tough decision, then you have to say, okay, now what is going to be my direction for the next 90 days when I make this decision? Like when I decided to leave my job, I had to figure out, okay, what am I going to do to make this money back that I'm not making? I've got this cushion from the house, but then I had to make goals toward actually figuring out my music career and making it happen.
Because the cushion only lasts so long, right?
Right.
You have to figure out how to make that happen before that cushion is up. And
yep.
I think that's a challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs. We're constantly making decisions. Some of us are bigger picture people. I know Dan is a big picture, he's got lots of long-term goals, and I'm more of the day-to-day, what's going to get us something today. But there's really has to be a balance of both of those, because if you don't have the long term in view, then you're going to get stuck making decisions, just for the here and now all the time. And that becomes frustrating as well. Do you have a book that you would recommend for our audience, something that has impacted the way you make decisions or the way that you run your business?
I was trying to think about that. I think the EMyth, and probably a million people have mentioned that book on the show. But for me, I think that's really top of mind right now because I'm kind of in that phase of my business where I'm needing to move out of the working in my business into working on my business. And I have several VAs, and I need to be better about empowering them to take charge of what I've given them instead of me trying to micromanage. And I think, musicians, it's when you first start out, you don't have that. You're in the I'm doing everything mode. But eventually you do get people that come onto your team, whether it's, volunteers that are your fans that want to help you in different ways. Or, I was always a big one of like hiring my family members. My daughter does some work for me. My mom does some work for me. And so you can always find people that can help you out. And it's going to be hard to get very far unless you have some people on your team. So I think the EMyth is helpful in getting you from like being the person that makes all the pies, as the analogy in the book, to actually, creating a system to show other people how to make the pies exactly the way you do.
Well, and that's a great book, and I love that book. And, we just recently did an episode on one of our daily tips, and it was titled, Are You Making Time to Work on Your Business and Not Just Always Working in Your Business? So I would encourage our listeners to dive a lot deeper into that book as well as into that daily tip that we did. That was actually episode number 20, daily tip 20. So if you want to go back and go to our website, toughdecisions.net, and find that episode and listen to it, I would encourage you to do that because it'll give you some additional tips and strategies on how to make sure that you're actually working on your business and not working always in your business. And so, Bree, I want you to talk to us a little bit here about what you're doing or what you've done with some of the money that you've made up to this point right now as an entrepreneur. So what are some of the most exciting places maybe that you've traveled or item that you've purchased with the money that you've made up to this point as an entrepreneur?
I love to travel. So I think, the biggest thing about my business is I love the ability to have the freedom to just go. We're going to go this weekend for about 4 days and just go do some traveling to an area that I've never been before in California and Nevada. And that's just fun. I love doing that. But I'd say the trip I took in 2014 with my husband for our 20th wedding anniversary, we did 23 days in Europe. And
23 days. That is awesome.
7 countries. So, and my husband planned the whole thing. He did a great job of trains and planes and all that stuff and hotels. And it was amazing. And I just want to do it again. I want to go back and visit different countries this time.
So how did you have everything continue to run while you were gone for 3 weeks?
At that point, I think I only had one VA. So,
You can manage them from wherever you are.
I can manage them. And we made sure to have hotels with good internet. So, sometimes we would do a tour in the morning and then my husband would want to take a nap and I'd just go do some work in the lobby or in the room, just making sure that I'm up on emails and things like that. I don't mind doing that on a trip. I don't mind spending an hour a day making sure that things are still running if it allows me to be able to do it.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because that's, Danae and I, we take a lot of trips. We like to travel quite a bit, but everywhere we've ever gone, we do something for the business, whether it's doing something in that area for the business or jumping on a phone call because somebody has a question or, when you're in the business and you love doing what you're doing, it's not work. To me, when I go and travel and I have to work on my business, I'm like, it's okay. I don't really think of it as work. I enjoy what I do. And I enjoy the ability to be able to do it wherever I want to do it.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's just facilitating me being able to do it in that location. So I don't mind having to check in every day. Some people are like, no, I want to be totally out of pocket, when I'm traveling, but I'm not like that. And we go every year. Our family has a cabin in Maine, my husband's family. And we go there 3 weeks every summer. And, we've got internet there, it's in the woods, but we have internet. And I totally don't mind working pretty much every day that I'm there for a little while because, it's not like my schedule is full. It's okay, boating and swimming and eating and a little email, not a big deal.
No, that's definitely one of my requirements wherever we go and travel is that you got to have internet or at least a cell phone connection.
Right.
I'm not the type of person that just wants to go and throw my cell phone away, not check email and be completely disconnected for weeks and on end. That's not me,
Me
I maybe could get through it maybe one day.
Maybe. One day. I was just gonna say, I think I still have family members that he's never met because he won't go away from me. So, yeah.
But those aren't close family members now.
That's true.
Those are people who are in LA, Lower Alabama is what they call it. Still have no cell phone towers. They have no internet connection.
No,
They're completely off the grid.
Oh my
gosh. It's just not fast enough for him.
Well, Bree, we really do appreciate you taking some time to be on the podcast with us today. How can our listeners reach out to you and get some more information from you if they want to continue to follow you?
Absolutely. So they would definitely benefit from my podcast, which is called the Female Entrepreneur Musician Podcast. You can find it on iTunes and at femmusician.com. That's F as in female, E as in entrepreneur, musician.com. And if you go to femmusician.com/income, you can grab my 19 proven sources of income you probably haven't considered for your music business.
Thank you so much. And I hope our listeners will continue to follow you and get some more information from you and look forward to having you on a future episode as well, Bree.
Thank you. It's been super fun.
All right. You too. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Tough Decisions Network. Be sure to visit toughdecisions.net to gain access to show notes for this episode and to join our free weekly entrepreneur email where we will send you news about the latest technology for your business, inspiring quotes, and the latest books for entrepreneurs. That's toughdecisions.net.